Okay, welcome everybody. Today we'll be interviewing the living legend for the Mecca of basketball in Manicaland. This is Coach Dewolf, respectfully known as Teddy for most of us who played for him. Mr. Dewolf, thank you for taking this time to talk to most of your former players about the history of basketball in Mutangadura in Zimbabwe. And before we start, I'm probably more interested to find out more about your history with sports. Where did you begin as far as athletically, sports-wise? Were you always a basketball fan, or did you grow up in other sports?
I grew up in Boston, and we had the Boston Celtics, who back at that time were never ever beaten. They, with Bob Cousy and Bill Russell and the Jones boys, as they used to call them, and Bill Sharman and that gang, they dominated basketball for many, many years in the United States. And so I grew up with them. I had a clock radio that I could dial it up, and it would automatically go off if I fell asleep. And I would go to sleep every night listening to the Celtics. I wasn't tall enough to be able to play much as a player. I just wasn't big enough. Even back then, they wanted the tall guys on the team, and that wasn't me. So I played American football, and my main sport was track.
Okay.
Where I did both indoor and outdoor track.
Okay.
So I went up through Newton High School near Boston, Massachusetts, and I played football there. But then also I did the track all 4 years. I was coached by a terrific coach who actually had gone to the Olympics himself, a guy named Bill Boyle, and I learned a lot about coaching from him.
Okay.
Doing it. Played very little basketball myself, except just fooling around, having a good time. But obviously I was watching the best team at that time in the world with the Celtics and learned a lot from them. Then when I went to university, I now played a lot more football. It was a bigger sport than track down there. I captained my American football team and at college, and then also captained my track team. That was my background.
Okay, all right. And so when did you first arrive in Zimbabwe, specifically the Old Mutare mission?
1965. Now, I had been there, same place at the mission there, from 1955 to 1956 between those 2 years for 1 year, when my father was on a sabbatical leave from Boston University, and he was teaching there.
Okay.
And so I stayed there just for that 1 year, went for a brief time to Chancellor Primary School, and then to Mutare Boys High. At that time it was Rhodesia.
Okay.
It was against the law for me to attend Hartzell. My skin color was wrong.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how did basketball? What are the origins of basketball at Old Mutare? Before you tell us about basketball in Old Mutare, what was the sports landscape at that time? At Hartzell High School.
Well, at Hartzell, when we first started, basically it was athletics, track, and first term. Then second term, for the girls it was netball, for the boys it was soccer. And that was the landscape. Third term you had some estetafort for music and everything. That's it.
Okay.
There was nothing else on offer.
Okay.
At all.
So how did basketball start?
Basketball started where we had a couple guys, Augustine Mpofu, Mike Nyambuya, who people in Zim know as General Nyambuya, Paul Mutangadura, and some of these guys who came, and they all had played some basketball at their former schools and everything. So we started playing with them. And they came begging to please start it. So we went to the it was the netball court that was down below the primary school.
Okay.
And it was not being used at that time, so we changed it around and made it into a basketball court.
Now, what year was this, roughly?
That was probably about 1970, 74? No, 75.
Okay.
In
Okay.
1975. Yeah.
Okay. So this netball court, in my mind, is just a grass court, very little grass.
Oh yeah, just dirt, really. Yeah.
So you played basketball on dirt.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. And then we played there for about 3 or 4 years. As the years went by, it was picking up in popularity. And as it picked up in popularity, the dirt on the court sank downwards, so that the 10-foot baskets eventually became 11-foot baskets.
Okay.
And things of that kind. Yeah, a lot of fond memories on that court.
Oh, okay.
But then, just after independence, then 1981, 82, we then moved from those courts and went up to the villa, what had been tennis courts.
Yes.
Up there, and we made that into a basketball court.
Okay.
And we played basketball there for the next couple years.
Okay.
And that's where we had people like Vince Rungano, who in 1984 became the first Hartzell kid to join the national team.
Wow. So Vince Rungano from City Saints in Mutale, right?
That's right.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
That's right. He's now passed away, but
Okay.
he was there. And and then he captained our side for a couple of years and really motivated all of the young ones to come in. So you then had a very young team of Josiah Korewa, Brian Mutimbanyoka, Taipane, Charenja, Gabriel Shawi, Johnny Musabayana, there were a whole slew of them that then came in at that time. And while they were in Form 1 and Form 2, we then started kind of seriously playing basketball and trying to build the team and make it stronger. And so what we did was we joined, then Dave Mutambara was teaching at Hartzell at that time. And Dave then was very interested in playing, and he helped to form a team called the Jackals, which was the first African side to now join the Mutare, the Manicaland League. And they would go in there regularly and get scores that were something like 115 to 10.
Wow.
Against them, just getting hammered by the basically two groups, the Florida gang, who had a number of national team members, the Sammy Grottises and the Tenny Soma and these guys.
Right.
And then there were also a number of, the Hellenics team was very strong. And there were 3 or 4 sides that were there of all white. Okay. So there was the one Florida team, and then there were 3 or 4 all white teams, and then there were the Jackals. So the Jackals then invited us, as Hartzell now, to join them. Well, virtually all of our players were in Form 1 and Form 2, but that didn't matter. We had them join anyway. And so just as little youngsters, they used to go in there and get their weekly drubbing from these big, very accomplished sides that had national team players and all that.
This is Form 1 kids playing at club level.
That's right, at club level.
Okay.
That's right. And so that went on, but it didn't take too long. The girls started making their impact faster than the boys, actually. We had these Form 1 side, the one I remember best is a youngster, I don't know where she is by now, Ruby Ferro, who basically, Ruby as a Form 1 learned to defend tough against a playmaker. And she came out, and there was a woman that was the playmaker there, and I'll never forget the day when she had been taught to fake coming in to take the ball, and she would fake in there and step back, fake and step back, and in practice we had taught her to go huh, and back, huh, and back.
Okay.
And she didn't know she shouldn't make the noise in a game because it could cause it technical, but she was doing it anyway, and the ref didn't call her. So she was out there going, yeah, and coming out. And the poor woman that she was playing against was actually at that time the national team playmaker.
Wow.
And she got so frustrated from all the attention from Ruby that at about 3/4 of the way through the game, she took the ball, she slammed it down on the ground, she turned to Ruby and she just went, ha, 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 and walked off and never played again.
Wow, against a Form 1 defender.
Against the Form 1 defender. So the girls made quite an impact quite quickly. The boys, it took a little bit longer, but even by the time they were in Form 2 now, the majority of them, a couple of them just were hugely talented kids, and fortunately we had some good height there as well. Okay. And if you just look at that group, Josiah ended up playing with the national team. Taipane became the captain of the national team. Brian Mutangadura became the European Player of the Year when he went to Europe for college. So you just had a whole powerful level of kids coming up.
So which years are these?
This would be about 1982, 83.
Okay. Now at that time,